¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están todos? Bienvenidos a una nueva edición de Monday Night Football Talk. Iniciamos una nueva semana y agradeciéndoles a todos una vez más su amable compañía a través de esta transmisión de Facebook Live. Soy Ricardo García Ochoa. Pónganse cómodos, relájense. La próxima hora, créanme lo que lo van a disfrutar. Tenemos un invitadazo listo para conversar con todos ustedes. Un hombre que ha tenido gran experiencia en el fútbol americano universitario en los Estados Unidos como jugador muy exitoso con los Wolfpack de la Universidad de North Carolina State y que también brilló en la NFL por 6 temporadas estando con los Giants de Nueva York, los Broncos de Denver y los Atlanta Falcons, llegando al Super Bowl con esa organización. Antes de presentarlo a él, le doy una cordial bienvenida a la cara que ustedes ya conocen, the face of the show, the star of this show, la estrella, two-time AAF, one-time AFC, another NFC championship player, Mr. Randy Fuller. Randy, how are you, brother? Nice to see you again.
And listen, another Monday. It's good to see that the band's back together again. You know, the closest you can get to winning the Super Bowl was being in it. So I did it twice. So I'll take that. And I'm excited for another show. As a reminder, let's make sure we wear our mask to everybody out there because we want to see football again. So it's going to take everybody to be on one accord so we can see football. But I'm excited about our guest tonight. He's a very special friend of mine, and I can't wait to hear all the different stories about football that we're going to hear from this man.
Well, I'm sure you talked to him before the show because he also put his mask on, and we already know where he works, where he coaches. Dice Randy que está contento, emocionado del programa y el invitado que tenemos. Y les recuerda a todos, por favor, ponerse el cubrebocas, protegerse durante esta pandemia. We're back to our usual time slot, 8 p.m. Central Time. And that's why we have tonight a great guest. Esa es la razón por la que tenemos esta noche un gran invitado. Estamos de vuelta a las 8 de la noche y déjenme presentarles al running back coach of the Buccaneers from East Tennessee State University. Former NFL player, running back, great running back with the NC State Wolfpack, our brother, our friend, Gary Downs. First of all, Gary, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on Monday Night Football Talk. And I want to ask you, for starters, how are you and yours doing throughout this pandemic? Welcome, Gary.
We're doing outstanding. Myself, my wife, Tanya, my two boys, Josh and Caleb, my daughter, Cam, we're all doing wonderful. And here at East Tennessee State Football, we're doing the best we can. We're adapting, overcoming, and our guys are poised for another season.
Dice Gary que él está afortunadamente muy bien, su esposa, sus hijos están bien, los jugadores están preparando para una próxima temporada y están ya listos, deseosos que pueda arrancar el fútbol americano. Go ahead, Randy. I know you have a lot of stories to talk about our guest tonight. Go ahead.
Of course, I got a lot, but he's probably going to be the only guest I'm going to have on the show where we actually played on the same team twice. Yeah. Once in high school and once in the pro. So we're just going to start off, Gary. We just want the fans to know, about you a little bit, where you're from, and whatever else you want to share just in the very beginning. So obviously I know, but I want them to know. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from New Bern, North Carolina. My mom and dad really grew up in the same town. And when I was 4 years old, my dad joined the military and we moved to Seattle, Washington, lived there for 4 years. From there, we moved to Heidelberg, Germany, lived in Germany for 5 years, then Indianapolis, Indiana in middle school, and finally arrived in Columbus, Georgia as a ninth grader where I ran into Randy down in Columbus. Through that whole process, a couple things were consistent. I always played football, basketball, baseball, and mom always took us to church, that, and family was super important. But football was a big part, basketball, baseball, and everywhere we went, that was going to be there. It was always the way to make your presence known at the new school, and you had to come in and prove yourself because you come to a new school and nobody knows you. And when I was so big as a kid, everybody always thought I was a lineman. So I would show up and they'd say, "Oh, you play offensive line?" I say, "No, I'm a running back." So I was used to that.
Le pregunta a Randy a Gary que le cuente un poco de su vida, sus principios dentro del fútbol americano. Dice, bueno, él nació en Carolina del Norte, vivió un tiempo en Seattle, su padre en el ejército, lo que le permitió también conocer y vivir en Alemania por un tiempo. Regresó a los Estados Unidos cuando ya estaba en la secundaria y ahí llegó a Georgia, en donde conoció a Randy, jugó un poco de fútbol americano, pero lo chistoso es que, bueno, Gary siempre ha sido un tipo grande, un tipo alto y creían que jugaba como liniero ofensivo, lo que no es cierto. Él es corredor y destacó en esa posición en el fútbol americano. Una familia aferrada también a la práctica del deporte, jugó básquetbol, béisbol y fútbol americano, pero muy importante, su madre también les inculcaba ir a la iglesia y esa fue una parte importante. Gary, I know that tonight you're being watched all over Latin America. And I have a few hellos from Fernando Quiroz, he's in Panama watching the show. James Jersey, he's in Monterrey, Mexico, watching the show. From Panama, James Pereira is also watching the show. So everybody's tuning in tonight. And tell us about your international experience because you all already said that you lived in Germany, but you also coach in Amsterdam during the NFL Europe. So tell us about that. I mean, how much of an international man are you? Cuéntanos un poco de esa experiencia, haber vivido en Alemania y haber sido coach también en la NFL Europa con los Almirantes de Amsterdam.
Well, obviously, I've lived in Germany. I've been to Japan, Mexico, been to most of the islands in the Caribbean, been to Portugal. Well, when I went to Amsterdam in 2007, I was coaching high school and I was offensive coordinator, and we had just won a state championship. And I got an opportunity by the NFL to go over there to coach. And I got to coach running backs in Amsterdam. And I mean, Amsterdam, you heard all the stories about the place. It was a super exciting city. Obviously you got the nightlife everywhere, but the football was great. You got young guys over there who are trying to make it in the league at 22, 23 years old. But really, we traveled. We lived in, and we would get on a train and go to Frankfurt or go to Cologne or go to Berlin or Hamburg and play. And the craziest thing was after the game, instead of getting on a train and going back to Amsterdam, you would stay at the stadium and eat dinner with the opposing team. And then sometimes they would have a party or a nightclub in the stadium. So you would party with the fans. So you're playing ball, hanging out with the other team after the game and the fans. And of course, Amsterdam has some great festivals. Queen's Day Festival, it would rival Mardi Gras in the States. It was an amazing festival. I've never seen that many people in one place celebrating one thing, but absolutely love Europe. I've been to Germany multiple times, been there before the wall came down there, been there in 94 when the wall came down, and went back again in 2007. So love the travel.
Bueno, le preguntaba a Gary acerca de esa experiencia internacional y él dice, definitivamente tuvo la oportunidad de chico vivir en Alemania, pero a través de la NFL Europa, después de ganar un campeonato nacional en preparatoria, recibió la invitación de la NFL para coachar con los almirantes de Amsterdam. Y eso le permitió conocer otra cultura dentro del fútbol americano, viajar en tren a todas estas ciudades en Alemania, pero muy importante haber podido festejar al final de los partidos, cenar con el equipo rival y tener una discoteca ahí en el estadio para también poder celebrar con los aficionados y ya hacer referencia al Queen's Day, el Día de la Reina, allá en Amsterdam, que podría competir con cualquier festejo en los Estados Unidos, empezando por Mardi Gras en Nueva Orleans. Go ahead, Brand. That was a good one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Gary. So I'm gonna keep going from the beginning down to the middle here. So I want to know about being recruited to go to North Carolina State. Did you ever have to think about another position, or was running back the only position that you played when you were there? Did you play in the special teams? And then the process leading up to the draft, how was all that experience?
I always played running back and I always played cornerback or safety. So even as an eighth grader, I was about 6 foot tall. I played running back and corner. And I got to Spencer, played running back. And strangely enough, Coach Matthews thought I was a linebacker for some reason. That was our high school coach. But I played safety. And during the recruitment process, I had multiple offers at running back, but Auburn offered me as a safety and corner. I had a couple HBCUs offer me as a wide receiver, but I really had my heart set on playing running back. And sort of the process was sort of like Tennessee, like the two-back system. They had Chuck Webb and Reggie Cobb, and Reggie Cobb had just gone to the NFL. Georgia, at that time, they were going to sign about 4 or 5 running backs, and one of them that in my class was Garrison Hurst, and I would have been one of the 4 or 5 they signed. I said, and Auburn, because they offered me late as a running back, I didn't want to go there. It came down to NC State and Georgia Tech. Both of those schools basically said, if we sign you, we will not sign another running back. And why NC State was special, because Ricky Logo was 2 years in front of me, our high school teammate. He played nose guard, played fullback for me. He was already at NC State, so I had a connection there. Most of my family was from North Carolina. My mother and father were saying they were going to get stationed in Hawaii. So I didn't want to really be in Georgia by myself. So NC State, I said it was a toss-up. Whoever won between NC State and Georgia Tech was going to be the school that year. And NC State had the number 1 or 2 defense in the country, even though I wasn't playing defense. They won. They beat Tech that year. I went there, had a great visit, and so I ended up committing to NC State over Tech. Most of my classmates would have thought I was going to Tech, because there was a coach from Georgia Tech that would eat lunch with me in school at least once a week.
Yes.
They come to a lot of basketball games, came to my football games, and they had been recruiting me since my sophomore year. So I started going to Tech games as a sophomore. Some of the other schools like Georgia, Tennessee, South, as I was a senior, but Georgia Tech had been there since jump. And obviously NC State recruiting Ricky was there from the beginning.
Le pregunta Randy a Gary cómo estuvo el tema de su reclutamiento y por qué decidió jugar en NC State. Y él habla de que, bueno, principalmente tenía familia allá, sus padres iban a mudar a Hawái por el tema también de las bases militares, mientras que él decía, bueno, irme a Georgia Tech, que era la otra posibilidad, significaba que se quedara solo en la ciudad de Atlanta. Eligió obviamente NC State porque también se comprometieron en firmarlo a él como corredor. Auburn le había hecho una oferta, pero una oferta para destinarlo como esquinero o safety, y él no quería jugar defensivo, quería jugar corredor, razón por la cual, teniendo también un compañero que estuvo con él en la preparatoria, ya en NC State, se fue a Raleigh, North Carolina. That's a tobacco land, Gary. Come on.
Well, Raleigh is quite the cosmopolitan now. Raleigh has changed quite a bit since then. Now, it wasn't like Atlanta. Atlanta in the mid-'90s was a lot larger city than Raleigh, especially. But it was fun. I didn't get into the NFL stuff. I mean, to tell you the truth, at NC State, I started as a freshman. I started 6 games as a freshman, led the team in rushing and touchdowns. Had an outstanding freshman year, battled an injury early on, but ended up winning the bowl game. Matter of fact, we played against Southern Miss in the All-American Bowl, and we beat Brett Favre in that game. And I scored the first touchdown in that game. We ended up beating them. As a matter of fact, on our staff here at East Tennessee State, I've coached with 2 coaches, Billy Taylor and Darryl Day. They were on the Southern Miss staff, and they remembered me as a freshman. So they were coaching against me as a player. They were coaches. And then the next 2 years at NC State, I actually sort of shared the backfield with Anthony Barber, who's an outstanding running back out of North Carolina. He was sort of the scat back, first and second down, and I ran sort of the third down and short yardage. Anthony was a year in front of me, and when he left, I was a senior. I got the full load of the backfield that year. Got to be the every down back. First down, second down, short yardage, all of it. I actually had 35 or 40 catches that year. I had 10 touchdowns, right at 1,000 yards rushing. Was all ACC, and we played Michigan in the bowl game. We ended up losing, but I had 100+ yards that day against Michigan, and I think they helped me get drafted. Ended up going to the Hula Bowl, playing in that game, had a decent week out there, and got invited to Combine. Had a good Combine week. I think everybody want to see the hands. I ran well. I ran 4.5. I actually, interesting enough, a few years ago, I did a scouting internship with the Falcons as a scout, and I pulled up my draft card to see, looking back, what did they say about me? And they had me down at a 4.42 40, because that's what I ran on my pro day at NC State. I was 6'1", 212 pounds, ran 4.42, 35 inch vertical jump, and I got drafted in the 3rd round by the New York Giants. So that's sort of how all that transpired.
Dice Gary que bueno, de esos días en Tobacco Road, allá con los Wolfpack de NC State, que en su primer año, bueno, obviamente no tuvo tanto peso dentro de la ofensiva como jugador, pero que le sirvió de mucho para aprender, porque inclusive enfrentaron a Brett Favre con Southern Mississippi en un tazón colegial, un College Bowl, y lograron vencer al gran afamado quarterback miembro del Salón de la Fama y leyenda con los Packers de Green Bay. Su última temporada juega un tazón en contra de Michigan, tuvo un gran partido también en esa ocasión. Y en su última campaña, Gary, I remember you had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in your last year. It was close to 900 yards running the ball. And as you said, you were also very productive catching passes from the backfield and even scoring. I think you had receiving touchdown that year with the NC State in your final year in 1993. Pero él habla de todo esto y la gran oportunidad que le dio para ser invitado al Combine. Corrió las 40 en 4:42, fue seleccionado en la tercera ronda por los Giants de Nueva York. Y bueno, vamos a seguir conversando con Randy de lo demás. Randy, go ahead. I'm sure you have another question for Gary.
Well, I'm gonna tell a quick story about a trip that Gary and I was on, and Gary may remember this. So I took a trip to University of Alabama, a recruiting trip, and I took Gary and one of our other teammates with me. After the game, on the way back, I was driving, and I may pass somebody illegally. I don't know. But anyway, the police officer pulls us over, and we, for some reason, we were calm, believe it or not.
Where was that? In Georgia?
Yeah, this was in Alabama.
In Alabama.
So the police
longest trip ever.
Hey, he looks in there, he sees 3 African American males, and he say, "Where you guys coming from?" We said, the Alabama football game. Man, that dude was like, "Roll Tide, keep going."
Go Bama.
It was about 6 hours to get back from that game. I don't know where we ended up both in
Alabama.
Alabama.
We got turned around.
Yeah.
But I just want to remind Gary of that story, man, because gosh, we had some time.
You remember what we were playing on the radio?
I don't remember that, but
DJ, Easy Rock, Raw Bass.
Oh, Raw Bass, yeah.
It takes two. Yeah.
It takes two to make the world go round.
Yeah.
It takes two.
It takes two. That's what we're playing.
Randy cuenta esta historia de que iban manejando un partido de Alabama, iban en la carretera y son detenidos por la policía, pero bueno, recuerdan la música que escuchaban en el carro y que afortunadamente el policía los dejó ir tan pronto como le dijeron que venían de un juego de Alabama. Randy, Gary, Alejandro Sanchez watching the show tonight from Monterrey. Marta Valero is in Mexico City, and we have all of Latin America tonight tuning into the show. So go ahead, Randy. Your next question for Gary Downs. Coach.
All right, yeah. First of all, let me say hello to everybody who's watching the show. Tell them thanks again. Gary, I know you are a big family man. All your kids play sports. How hard is it to balance being a coach, a dad, a husband, all the above? Because coaching it looks good on paper, but there's a whole lot that goes into it. So tell us how you sustain.
Well, when I finished playing ball, I always knew I wanted to coach. I just didn't know what level. During the 96 season, I was living in Fayette County, Georgia, and I helped out at North Clayton High School. DJ Shockley, who played quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs and Venture Falcons. I coached him when he was in 8th grade. And at that point, I knew I wanted to be a coach. And as I finished my pro career, remember that year I went to seminary.
Yep.
And the next year I coached at Riverside. And I said, and I was sort of like, so I'm going to test this out and see how it works. My children were little then. Josh was like 2 years old and Cameron was 5 and Caleb wasn't born yet. And I always had a fear about going to the NFL or college because of the time commitments and requirements. Going over to NFL Europe that year in 2007 was tough. It was tough on Josh. Caleb was too young to remember. It was tough on my oldest son. But as I spent those years in high school, I was able to coach Josh and Caleb in football. I coached them in basketball and baseball. I actually coached Cameron once in soccer. And so I was home coaching high school during their younger years. And I'm grateful to God that I was able to spend that time before getting this opportunity to coach college. Since coaching college, I've been able to make big games. I've been able to go on Josh's recruiting visits. I took Cameron to her recruiting visits. I remember going to her game last spring and she scored, or it was in the fall. I scored when she was there. I mean, so it's just been sort of, I can say it's not coincidental, but the fact is I've been able to make those major events and I haven't missed as much as I thought I would. So it's been very good.
Randy le pregunta a Gary acerca de su experiencia como coach y siendo un hombre de familia, qué tan difícil ha sido por el tiempo que te alejas de ellos. Y Gary dice que tuvo la fortuna de que cuando empezó con esta parte del coacheo, sus hijos estaban muy chicos, pero que ha tenido la oportunidad de ser entrenador de ellos en otras disciplinas y compartir, pasar tiempo con ellos. Su más chiquita, Cameron, no había nacido todavía. Cuando él se va a NFL Europa, fue algo difícil para su hijo mayor, Josh, pero que ahora que está escuchando fútbol americano colegial, ha podido estar con ellos y no se ha perdido afortunadamente fechas importantes como sucede en la mayoría de los casos con los coaches. I want to take that, Gary, and what do you have in you as a coach now from the men who coached you during your high school, college, and pro years? I mean, you played for Dan Reeves, who's one of the greatest coaches in the NFL, and you played for him both with the Giants and also with the Falcons. So how much do you have in you from the men who have, had that footprint or left something in you?
Well, Dan was very professional. Dan was always composed. He was never going to call you out of your name. Dan was a gentleman. Very detailed about the game, very much into the numbers. He would say, if you get the ball out on a kickoff return out to the 35-yard line, it increases your chances of scoring by such and such. If you get it out to the 45-yard line, your chances of scoring are going to go up by 50%. If you get out to the 50. So he was very detailed and very precise, but he was a gentleman. I played for Mike Shanahan. Very detailed, very precise, a perfectionist, expected perfection. So I learned a lot from both of those. Joe DeCamillis was my special team coach with the Falcons and the Giants. I learned a lot from Joe D. Richard Smith, who was a special team coach at Denver. I learned a lot how to play hard. In Denver, the expectation was to play hard all the time, and they improved me as a pro. My college coaches, Dick Sheridan, a disciplinarian. I mean, he would say, you are responsible not just for what you do, but you are responsible for how you're perceived. So from Dick, you learn that you are responsible for how you're perceived as a person on the field. My running back coach at NC State was Dick Porteed. Dick coached 40 years in college football. I still talk to him. He just sent my son Josh a graduation gift. I mean, wonderful man. Mike O'Kane, who was my head coach my last year in college, was the offensive coordinator here at East Tennessee State. So I got a chance to work for him for 3 years. And in high school, played for a great head coach, Frank Matthews. He helped me and Randy out in recruiting so much. And Greg Hart, he was our track coach, but he was a spiritual inspiration, and he basically poured a lot of the individual training into us because he was like ahead of his time in speed and agility for back in the 90s. Greg Hart was ahead of his time. So those are some great coaches I've had in the past.
Le pregunto a Gary acerca de los coaches y qué huella han dejado en él, y habla de Dan Reeves como un caballero, un hombre que muy profesional en su trabajo. Se refiere Mike Shanahan como un perfeccionista, detallista. Habla de Joe DeCamillis, que fue su coordinador de equipos especiales en los Falcons de Atlanta, el grado de exigencia, la competencia, la preparación. Y menciona también al coach Dick Sheridan, con quien trabajó en la universidad o para quien jugó en la Universidad Estatal de Carolina del Norte, como un hombre que era definitivamente un disciplinario. Y esos son algunos de los hombres que a lo largo de la carrera, el coach Hart también, le enseñaron tanto a Gary Downs y han impreso en él lo que hoy en día le sirve para ser un coach del fútbol americano colegial. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, the thought I had next, Gary, was guys like you. I mean, obviously we were both what we call stars in high school. We were stars in college. We had some stars in the pros, but the bulk of our professional career came on special teams. How hard is it for a guy who's been a star to all of a sudden accept that role as a special team player, and then when he does it well, they really not going to move you, so you're going to continue to do it. So how hard is that to go from that star player to that role player?
Well, you think in high school and college, I never played on any special teams other than as the returner. So I wasn't a kicker man, I wasn't a blocker on punt or kickoff. And so I remember at NC State when the tight end coach tried to get me to be on the punt team, I just sort of told him decline, and I was a starter, and he just said okay. But when I got drafted by the Giants, I can remember the phone call I got from Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves drafted me, expected me to come in and replace Lewis Tillman, who had just gone to the Bears. Lewis was their third down back, and Lewis was their best special teams player. And so as a 22, 21-year-old, that part about the special teams sort of went in one ear and sort of out the other. But really, over the course of the time playing for Dan, that was the role he wanted me to play, catch the ball in the backfield from time to time, and be a special teams ace. I didn't know how to do that in New York. I remember our first game, I was playing kickoff return, and I leveled about 5 people. 2 of them were for the other team, and 3 of them were for our team. I hit a guy in the ear, and he just, like dominoes, knocked everybody down. So I could crush people. And Dan was excited. He said, "You can't hit people like that every play because if I missed them, I was going to hit our guys." And in Denver, I got better as a special team player. I led the team in tackles and with the Falcons 2 of the 3 years. In 97, I led the team in tackles. In 98, I was second in tackles. I was top 10 in NFL in special team. You only take 1 special teamer to the Pro Bowl a year. But I was in the top 10. I was number 7 in the NFC in 98. And in 99, I was also voted top 10 in the league in special teams. I was a great cover guy. But it's hard because I didn't go to the league in my mind to be a special teamer. I went to be a running back, but I became a role player, and that became my business. That's how I make the team. And I made the team. I can think of 1998. I didn't get a lot of carries in camp, and the general manager told me, "Don't worry about it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Don't worry about it. It's taken care of," because I was slotted as a special teamer, and they weren't giving me carries because they already had my role and position figured out.
Le pregunta Randy a Gary que cómo aceptó esa parte, dejar ser una estrella para convertirse en un jugador de equipos especiales. Y Gary hace una excelente descripción. Llegó a los Giants seleccionado por Dan Reeves para reemplazar a Lewis Tillman, que había sido el corredor en terceras oportunidades y especialista estelar del equipo. Se va a Chicago Tillman y en Nueva York esperaban que Gary desempeñara esa función. Pero bueno, llega al equipo, se convierte en ese corredor en terceras oportunidades, pero también tiene que aceptar el papel de ser un especialista. Y en la primera jugada ya andaba reventando a todos, incluyendo a sus compañeros tacleando. En Atlanta fue una estrella con el equipo 2 de 3 temporadas, fue el líder en tacleadas y estuvo en el top 10 de jugadores especialistas para ser convocados al Pro Bowl en su carrera con los Falcons. I want to go back to those Falcon years, Gary, but we're going to do that after this break because there's a lot we need to hear from you. It's almost halftime. We're gonna have to take a break, and we're gonna come back. Raúl Méndez sends his best from Panama. He's the president of the Kiwanis Football League down there, and sends all the love to all of us tonight. So let's take a short break, Gonzalo, who's our producer. Gonzalo está en nuestra producción. Vamos a hacer una breve pausa y regresamos porque hay mucho más que hablar con Gary Downs. Él es el coach de corredores de East Tennessee State. El año pasado rebasaron las 2,000 yardas por la vía terrestre, aparte de ser un programa que en este año está esperando a ver qué va a pasar con el college football y el reclutamiento. Vamos rápidamente a una pausa y regresamos con más. Esto es Monday Night Football Talk.
Monday Night Football.
Ok, estamos de vuelta en Monday Night Football Talk y seguimos conversando junto a Randy Fuller con un hombre que marcó un paso en su carrera como jugador en la NFL y en el fútbol americano colegial también, y ahora es un extraordinario coach de corredores y coordinador del programa de reclutamiento de East Tennessee State University, Gary Downs. Gary, I want to go back a little bit to your experience as a coach. I mean, Randy and I have talked, I have asked you, and you've talked about what you've learned as a coach, the time you spent with your family. But I want to also ask how your kids are related to the sport. Are you one of those parents who wants to see your children succeed in a sport? And if that is the case, is that football the sport you want them to do well in?
Well, I can remember when Cameron was my daughter. She's 21 years old in college. I remember she was in gymnastics, and the gymnastics lady said she's really a good athlete. I was like shocked. And she was. I had no plans on her being an athlete. I didn't think she was one, but she was a very good basketball player, and she was an elite soccer player, ODP or Olympic Development Program, and Super Y. She ended up tearing both ACLs, one as a freshman and sophomore in high school, and then earned a scholarship her junior year, made all county her junior senior year, and has been at Kennesaw State. Joshua, I remember being at preschool on a field day and him shooting baskets and being a little bit more athletic. And then I remember him, he was very small as a child. And then I remember he was playing a basketball game. He made a steal at the end of the game and went in for a layup. So I didn't plan on them being athletes, but as it had, Josh became a dominant athlete as a middle schooler and as a high schooler. And Caleb, my youngest, he was about the most dominant youth athlete I've ever seen. So after having Josh and Cam as a 6-year-old, Caleb was the most dominant football player probably in the state and basketball player. He was a good baseball player. Josh was an elite baseball player on a national level team. So I didn't come into it thinking they were athletes, but once they got started, my idea was to help them prepare, teach them the fundamentals, to help them be better than I was. I wanted to be fundamentally sound if that's what they wanted to do.
Le pregunto a Gary acerca de cómo relaciona el grado de exigencia que como coach él tiene con sus jugadores, ahora en el caso de sus hijos. Habla de Cameron, su hija, que lamentablemente sufrió rotura de ligamento cruzado anterior en ambas rodillas, pero que ha sido una gran deportista desde niña, estaba dentro del programa olímpico de los Estados Unidos, una gran gimnasta, jugadora de baloncesto. En el caso de Josh, también un excelente deportista que se ha convertido conforme pasan los años en un jugador, en un atleta destacado, pero quien más le ha sorprendido es Caleb, su más pequeño, porque ha sido un atleta dominante en el deporte y lo vio desde muy chico. Entonces ahora han tenido la oportunidad. Tell us a bit, what are they doing right now? I mean, where is Josh and Caleb? Where are they playing, Gary?
Josh was a freshman at UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay.
He
Tar
enrolled
Heels.
early as basically he graduated in December and enrolled in January. He's going through camp right now. They expect him to play this year. In high school, Josh was first team All-State, AJC, and Atlanta Touchdown Club All-Stars. He was rated the #1 receiver in the state of Georgia, rated in the top 10, top 20 receivers in the country. He ended up having over 3,000 yards receiving in high school. Played in the U.S. Army or the All-American Bowl in San Antonio. And broke the record for the most catches in a single game. Caleb was a freshman this past year, started on Mill Creek, which is the largest school in the state of Georgia, made all-region, made Max Preps, second team All-American as a freshman, has just been named sophomore All-American by Max Prep, and just got invited to the 2023 All-American Bowl just now, for a game that's not going to happen for another 2 years. So they're doing outstanding. They're elite ball players. They're much better ball players than I was.
Total eclipse of the father.
Yeah, absolutely. Much better.
Well, they say two is greater than one, Gary.
Dice Gary que sus hijos, bueno, Josh está con la Universidad de Carolina del Norte, ha sido un atleta destacado como receptor, impuso un récord en el All-American Bowl de High School que se lleva a cabo en el Alamo Dome en San Antonio, el US Army High School Bowl. Y en el caso de Caleb, bueno, está todavía en preparatoria, pero ha sido clasificado por Max Preps, que es una revista que clasifica a los mejores jugadores de preparatoria en todos los Estados Unidos, considerado segundo equipo en su primera temporada y que en esta segunda campaña ya se espera que sea el primer equipo freshman con el gran desarrollo que ha tenido Caleb también en la preparatoria y en el estado de Georgia. Go ahead, Randy. I'm just enjoying this. I'm just warming up with Gary. Come on, man. We're going to do
I know.
a 90-minute show with Gary tonight.
Oh God, I totally agree. And I want to go ahead because I know I got to get this question in before our time runs out. Gary, with knowing that you have an eye for talent, being a recruiting coordinator there at East Tennessee State University, we're do you have any international players? B, would you be interested in coming down with us to Panama or to Monterey to just talk about what you look for? We know they got to have grades, that's obvious. And then just by position, if you could break it down for us so our guys who are out there listening, they'll have a better idea on how we can prepare our athletes so they'll have a chance to come play in the States.
Well, we do recruit a little internationally. We've looked at some players from Canada. I've not received any information from players from the South America or Mexico or Central America as of yet. But we look at, what we're looking for is not necessarily the development or the fundamentals. We're looking for raw talent. Certain positions, it is size, but most positions are in movement. It's sort of like you're looking at a dancer. How smooth are they? Their balance, their coordination, how they move. That's what we're looking for. You think about Steve Nash, who was a basketball player. He had been a soccer player. So you're looking for the guys with good feet, flexible ankles, flexible hips, guys that have what we call separation, meaning that their upper body can move in one direction opposite their lower body, hand-eye coordination. So that's what we're looking for in most of the players. Obviously, the ability to strike, to make quickness, explosiveness, leaping ability. Top end speed matters for a wide out or a DB, for offensive alignment or defensive alignment, certain positions. If you're talking about an offensive tackle, you're talking about a guy that's 6'4" to 6'5" or taller. You're talking about for a guard or center, someone that's 6'2" or 6'3". You could have a 6-foot center, but longer arms. So there's certain things you're looking for in a player. I'm really looking for guys with movement and instinct. Instinct, those guys who just have a feel for the game, that they're in the right place. If a guy hasn't been around the game, then you're looking for raw ability, the ability to move quickly, explosively, lateral mobility. Lateral mobility and the ability to bend in the knees and hips are very important. That's what we're looking for. Watch a film, like I said, it's not the most refined player. You're looking for that raw movement, a guy that can move, pick him up, put him down. Like I said, it's not top end. It's usually quickness and lateral mobility.
Una interesantísima pregunta que le acaba de hacer Randy a Gary. Espero que hayan tomado nota todos los que están interesados en América Latina de llegar a una universidad para jugar fútbol americano, como el caso de East Tennessee State. Me pregunta de qué es lo que buscan y el reclutamiento y si están dispuestos a hacer reclutamiento internacional. Y Gary perfectamente lo dice. Han hecho reclutamiento en Canadá. Tienen algunos jugadores internacionales que provienen de ese país, pero que hasta el momento no tienen nada de México, Centroamérica y Sudamérica. Y él habla de lo que buscan es precisamente talento bruto, talento nato. Pero lo importante también es que tengan agilidad, algo de rapidez. En algunas posiciones se requiere tamaño, pero hay otras en las que con la facilidad, la movilidad lateral y con la capacidad de doblar las rodillas también y doblarse el cuerpo, eso puede ayudar mucho a que un jugador reciba una oportunidad de ser becado para jugar en East Tennessee State. Gary, you had a great year last year with your running backs. I think it was the first time since 1999 at East Tennessee State the Buccaneers had over 2,000 yards running the ball in a season. So give us an input, some information about how you accomplished that with those running backs, and how much does that mean to you doing something that hadn't been done in the university the past 20 years?
Well, when I started coaching high school ball, my goal, I said, we're going to be able to run the ball. I took over at Riverside Military Academy, and they weren't able to run. The president said, we couldn't run the ball. I said, we are going to be able to run the ball. When I got here, my first couple of years, we struggled, but the backs were still productive. The last 2 years since Coach Sanders came in, I got a great offensive line coach, Matt McCutcheon. He was under Trickett at Florida State, an outstanding O-line coach. And really what Matt does, he tells the lineman to put a hat on a hat. Mm-hmm. And I tell my backs, he said, if they put a hat on a hat and they can cover up the defensive player, if they block for 5, we've got to get 10. If they block for 2, we got to get 3. And so the backs, I focus on aiming points. So you can't teach a guy to be quicker or faster necessarily, but I'm going to teach you where to line up. I'm going to teach you the blocking scheme. I'm going to teach you your reads From that, I'm going to work on body position, base, and pad level, and determination. I'm going to let them know what we're expecting from them, what the blocking scheme is, and what we need. Do we need 1.5 yards? We need 5 yards. And I always tell our guys, we're not going to be an easy win. The defense is going to feel us. We're going to play lower. We're going to play faster. We're going to play tough. And we're going to hit guys, like I said, that 15-round fight. The first quarter, we're going to hit them, but by the second, third quarter, they're going to get tired of it. And I usually have 2 or 3 good backs that they're going to get tired of. And I got a thunder and lightning. Quay Holmes, he's 6'2", 225 pounds. He's thunder. And Jacob Sailors, 6 foot 205, probably around the 4'4". He is definitely the lightning.
Le pregunta a Gary aquella temporada que tuvieron en 2019, más de 2,000 yardas por la vía terrestre, y él habla precisamente del éxito que han tenido con el coach Matt McCutcheon como coach de línea ofensiva, enseñándole a los linieros a poner un casco encima del casco defensivo. Y él le decía a sus corredores, si ellos bloquean para 5 yardas, vamos a obtener 10. Si bloquean para 2, vamos por 3. Lo importante es que él les ha enseñado a dónde alinearse en el campo, la lectura también del bloqueo, y esa fue la razón para el éxito. El año pasado tuvieron 2 extraordinarios corredores, uno el trueno, el otro el rayo, y eso le permitió a los Buccaneers tener una temporada de más de 2,000 yardas, algo que no alcanzaban desde 1999. That's a good story, Randy.
I got one for you real quick. We're approaching our second to last game, and Quay Holmes needs, let's say he needs 130 yards to go over 1,000 for the year. Our last game of the year was going to be Vanderbilt. So I'm thinking, I really would like him to go over 1,000 during this next last game against Mercer. And so Quay, on his first play from scrimmage in that game, broke a 75-yarder and went over 1,000 yards the first play of the game. Then the next series broke another 70 yards. And so he ended that game in our next to last game, 275 yards, broke the single game rushing record for East Tennessee State in that game. So he was 1,100 yards on the season, and obviously the first back in ETSU to go over 1,000 in over a decade. So it was an outstanding feeling and accomplishment for him. And I didn't let him know during the game. I didn't want to, but I knew in my heart, this is special.
Dice Gary que ellos tenían a Quay Holmes, uno de sus corredores, que llegaba a ese último partido de la temporada en contra de Vanderbilt, necesitando un poco más de 100 yardas para alcanzar las 1,000 en la temporada. En su primer intento por tierra, primera serie ofensiva, 75 yardas en contra de Vanderbilt. Y en la segunda posición, otras 70, que esa noche estableció un récord para la historia de East Tennessee State de más yardas por tierra en un partido, Quay Holmes, y tuvo esa gran temporada que a lo largo del juego él no le quiso decir nada para no echar a perder la noche, pero que al final del partido obviamente todos orgullosos de lo hecho por Quay Holmes y los Buccaneers en ese encuentro en contra de Vanderbilt. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, Gary, I was just wondering during this COVID-19 thing, it's been chaos for everybody. What, or do you think, is there any edge that any other team has more than the other as far as the players staying engaged or, getting ahead in some kind of capacity, or what have you guys done to keep your guys active and just motivated? Because it's definitely frustrating for everybody.
Well, we weekly, when we were home away from our players, we had weekly meetings, sometimes daily meetings with our players, just keep them engaged, speaking clarity to them about what to expect. Once they came back on campus, we changed our routine up. They work out in the morning, they lift weights and they run. But then after lunch, we actually would go out and compete with them in the afternoon and be around it. And then we have Zoom meetings at night. So we sort of engage it and keep them engaged all day long, not to tire them out, but we're not where they have too much free time on their hand. But I think in the end, the culture is going to be the determining factor. You put that vision up of what you're aspiring to do. And when Randy came in, he said, look, we're going to win a conference championship. We want to win a national championship. And that's still there. And Randy's been there. He came in that first year and we won the conference. This team is more talented, but they need to mature and grow together. So you got to keep that vision or that mission held up to them, and the expectation, the standards. And it has to become important to them. Coaches say, what are you willing to sacrifice over the next 6 months to be a champion for the rest of your life? And it's sort of like that culture, the things you sow into them every day, that's what helps them stay focused. And every now and then you have one that loses focus. And that's where you have to earn your money. The rest of them, you just spend a little time with them and keep it focused. What's the goal? And they stay there. But it's the culture. The culture is what keeps them. And the great weight coach, Al Johnson, does a great job in the weight room. The strength coach sees the players more than any other coach. They see him every day. And he is the one that basically preaches that message on a day in, day out basis, keeping the guys focused. The weight room coach, that's where it starts.
But Gary, don't you feel like as a coaching staff, you guys have one eye on your team, but the other one on what's going on around the world and especially college football in the US? Because this past week, it's been like a domino effect. We've seen the Ivy League cancel their season, then it was the MAC conference, and we hear UConn, and you every day it's like you're hearing something new and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we live in uncertain times. Don't you feel like that takes away maybe your attention, or has that taken away your attention as a coaching staff from what you guys have to do?
We have a model here, and Coach Sanders brought it: is control what you can control, and that's what he says every day. We literally, that model is on our rings. Control what you can control, and if something's outside of control, don't worry about it. We can't control what the Big Ten or ACC or any other teams do. We are aware of what they do practice wise. Other teams in our conference, what kind of preparation they make. I talk to coaches. Coach Sanders talked to other coaches, so we're aware. But we talk to our players about that. In life, control what you can control. You cannot control the weather. You can't control what another conference does. And that sort of goes into the toughness, the ETSU toughness is, look, I can't help that. That had nothing to do with me. I cannot control what the NCAA decides. We will adapt and overcome. But that's our model. Control what you can control.
Randy, Gary, it's like it's close to midnight down there in Chile, but they're watching the show tonight, so they're gonna go late to bed because they wanted to hear from you, Gary, and see the show tonight. So hello
Right.
to everybody down there in Chile
Hello,
watching the
sir.
show in South America. Go ahead,
Right.
Randy.
Yeah, staying on that, Gary. I saw where and it's probably been a long time coming. I saw where the players are talking about forming a union, which is probably long overdue. What are your thoughts on that? And you know, how do they pass the leadership from year to year? Do they get older guy? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I would imagine most unions or form will have to have somebody that's consistent, that stays there. They'll have some legal representation, whether it's a former player or not, doesn't matter. But obviously, this idea of that college athletes are professionals has been shopped around for a number of years. They got cost of attendance at the Power Five levels. Uh, Players are aware of the revenue stream that comes in through television and marketing. And so obviously not every player is going to get the opportunity to go on to the pros. And I think players are in the right mind. And I think if they organize, I think there can be some benefits to players long term. I just think um, it's got to be within reason. The problem at this point, the contracts that the conferences have negotiated with the TV have already been negotiated, and
Mhm.
expenses had already been decided. So the balance sheet is made out. And if players make demands financially, it's sort of like getting a bill dropped on you at the end of the middle of the month. You're not prepared for it. I don't think that the teams or the conferences can renew, let's say, negotiate that. Um, Having a son and having had two sons and playing college ball myself, I understand the thought process. And being an NFL, former NFL player, I know the NFL has gone through those battles with players learning what the NFL had economically and understanding that we as players needed more and we thought we were due more. So I understand the player's position. On this side of it, on the coaching side, I try to keep it out of the economics. Every now and then I have a player that say, let's say a player's a walk-on and the player wants to be on scholarship or he can't afford to be at school. So I understand that plight when a player economically can't afford to be at school. As far as a player wanting revenue, I don't necessarily sympathize it, but I understand
Right.
objectively. I do understand.
How much do you emphasize, Gary, on your players the importance of the academic part?
All right. Weekly, we have to meet with our players. So I've got a file, a drawer right here with all our players. I can't show you. It's all my running backs' academic performance. From every quiz, every paper they have due, how much time they spend in study hall. If they miss a study hall, I'm going to get a call right now to where, and I'm also going to find out where they are graduation requirement wise. Since I've been here, I've had 5 backs graduate. I have one that graduated last year that's actually a college coach. Crazy thing is, he was playing for me in 2018, and he was going to be my assistant in 2019, but he actually got hired by Valparaiso. His name is Corey Calder. They called him my son because he was, a player and assistant, and he became a coach. Fallon Lee coaches college ball. Matt Thompson graduated with a master's degree. Matt graduated and was offered a job, making a very good salary. The company he works for offered to pay his master's degree, and Matt decided to come back and play his 5th year for us, and then he graduated. So their graduation is very important because, like me, I've been coaching now longer than I was a player, and I always emphasize you got to have 2 goals, at least 2 goals, a football goal and a goal after football, because you're going to be a man and a citizen a lot longer. You're going to be a ball player, and that degree will exponentially pay off, for yourself and your family. And I want you to be able to come back and me to be proud of you, the school to be proud of you, and you to be able to provide for your family. And football is a part of that, but the academics are the foundation of what you're going to take in the rest of your life.
Gentlemen, just let me give a big quick shout out to Big Blue Monterrey, big fans of the New York Giants over there in Monterrey, Mexico. Yeah, we have to take you there, Gary, to Monterrey. That's the industrial capital of Mexico. Uh, Football Grill Nation, they're also based in Monterrey. Legion Football, which is in Costa Rica. All the football fans in Costa Rica. Daniel Morales en particular a Daniel Morales, un fuerte abrazo. Gracias, Daniel. Jesús Vera en Monterrey. Miguel Ángel Yagüe en la Ciudad de México. APRRV en Chile, Raúl Méndez en Panamá. Gracias a todos por la sintonía esta noche. Gracias por disfrutar del show y también a los fans de los Patriotas, la Nación Patriota en Costa Rica. Un fuerte abrazo. Go ahead, Randy. We're hitting the final stretch, but hey, man, we have a lot of things we haven't asked Gary.
I know.
Time flies in this show.
Well, I definitely got to touch on the fact that Gary and I played for the Falcons and went to the Super Bowl together. So I definitely want to ask Gary his thoughts on why was that team so special and how did we pull off that feat of beating the Minnesota Vikings in that NFC Championship game, and then talk about how much fun it was for us for our city to have a parade for us and give us the key to the city.
Well, I went to the Falcons in 1997, and Dan Reeves, I just, was with him in New York. The idea was to bring the Falcons out of the stone age of football and grow that organization up. I was a part of that. And very rapidly, some of the acquisitions that he brought in, whether it was Cornelius Bennett, whether you're like yourself, he brought in players that we just gelled as a group. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily anything the coaches did. They brought together really good men. I think we had some outstanding teammates, friends that I have to this day. My son, like me and Randy, we visited Jamal Anderson. My son and his son play on the same team together. Ruffin Hamilton, who we played on that team together. My son had played with his son. I mean, it's just those kind of guys. Ray Buchanan has trained my son as a DB. I mean, Terrence Mathis worked with my son Josh and Caleb as a receiver. So those guys are great players, but great people, very competitive. Yes. We had a lot of highly competitive guys on that team. We just gelled. I think, a quarterback like Chris Chandler, probably underappreciated for his football knowledge and instinct. A guy like Tony Martin, but we had some great, that defensive line, Bill Kolar at Chuck Smith. My oldest son, Josh, played with Chuck's son, Lil Chucky at North Gwinnett. So you think about those guys. Those guys are not all from Atlanta, but they made their homes in Atlanta. They stayed there. We had a lot of guys there in the off season every year. And to think then we go to the playoffs and beat San Francisco, who had always, remember Jerry Rice demolishing Charles Dimry. And then all of a sudden we beat them in 98. I mean, wow, we beat the 49ers. That was like an amazing accomplishment in itself. I mean, I picked up that big third down to extend the drive in that first round game. And then we go to Minnesota. And you're dealing with Randy Moss, Randall Cunningham, and you're dealing with John Randall and this amazing offense, Chris Carter, that is leading the league and setting records. And we came up with a plan. I mean, I can think of William White and Jeannie Robb playing deep center field and knowing that they were going to throw deep and basically shutting that pass game down. And then lastly, Gary Anderson that hadn't missed a kick in a whole year, and then all of a sudden he misses it. And being in Minnesota and watching that miss, and then watching Morton, who's a Hall of Famer. I saw Morton a few weeks back. Morton's a great guy, and Morton, Morton and Dan hold it. We win that game and go to Super Bowl. It was unreal. And then when we come back, not just from the NFC Championship, and they are waiting on the interstate for us. I'm talking about we pull up to Swanee. We can't pull up. We can't get off the interstate because the highway is blocked. And then we finally get up to the building, and they say, go in the building. And we go out to the back on the balcony, and there are literally, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people in the middle of the night in the dark celebrating this. I mean, it's just amazing. That never happened. And then we go to the Super Bowl, and, we lost. But we come back to the city of Atlanta, and they say, we got something for you. We get off the plane, and you get on fire engines, and you ride through the city of Atlanta. And it's like the heart of Atlanta, like a kid waiting for Christmas, had been waiting for a team to fulfill their hopes and dreams forever. And this Falcon team from 98 was that team. I mean, and they loved it that year. I mean, it's amazing.
Gary, Randy says you guys beat the Minnesota Vikings. You beat the 15-1 Minnesota Vikings in the NFC Championship game.
Like a miracle. It was like a miracle.
Yeah. Inside that Thunderdome they had over there in Minneapolis.
Amazing.
But tell me one thing. You've talked about the importance of the fans and the role they played when you guys came back to the city of Atlanta. How much of a burden will it be this year if we have an NFL season without fans on the stands? As a point of view of a player, what do you think about that?
Well, I can think about running down on kickoff. And before you ever run down on kickoff, a lot of guys, you'll see them turn around and they'll wave to the crowd and get it up. That will be gone. Now, in truth, great players, whether we're playing in front of 100,000 or playing in a back sand lot, because that's where we started, or in the yard, guys that love the game can still get up and play. You know what? We're going to do this. We can go do it. And just me and you going to do it. And it's just between me and you. Guys that really love the game can do that. Now, it may be tough for some others, because that motivation is not going to be there. But I know the league will make it like the NBA has. They will make some adjustments to give it a feel of a game around the game. But, for me, when I was playing, I was tunnel. I couldn't hear anybody. I'm focused here. Even though I'm doing this for you, I'm here. So whether anybody sees it, it's just me and you, mano and mano.
Down mechanism.
Yeah.
Randy.
What'd you say?
Go ahead, Randy.
Oh yeah. What was the last thing I wanted to ask? Because I know my time is totally short. Yeah. So I want to go back. I mean, before we got there, Ricardo, I just want you to hear this. I remember being a free agent coming from the Steelers, and I remember asking Gary, like, I could either go to Detroit or Atlanta. And I said, Gary, what do you think about me coming here? I say, I mean, is this team really any good? Because they were laughing at me in Pittsburgh, like, you don't want to go to Atlanta. So what Gary said, man, I'm telling you, this team is really, really close, and I believe we can go to the Super Bowl. That's what Gary said to me. And because he's my friend, hey, I took him for his word, and I joined that team. And then my friend Sean, who's an attorney, he said, after training camp, he said, "Man, do I need to buy these season ticket?" I said, "Man, you need season ticket. I think we're going to the Super Bowl." And he just started laughing. He could not. Oh, he died laughing. And sure enough, I mean, we didn't even have fans in the stands in the beginning, so we're probably already used to not having fans in the stand, right? So, but as the season went on, man, we got better and better. And I remember just you couldn't even find a ticket. It was just so many people wanting to come to the Falcons game.
Well, you look now that new stadium, Gary, they have in Atlanta. That's a that's a piece of art.
That's a beautiful stadium. I mean, it looks like an airport. I mean, it looks like the Denver. It's so wide open. It is a beautiful place. You can literally get tickets and sit on field level in a chair, look through the tee, like the team sitting on the bench, and you could be right on the sideline. It's an amazing place. Absolutely amazing.
It's an incredible place. Uh, Gentlemen, I don't know how we got to an hour on this show. I mean, the time flew by. It's 9 p.m. now. Gary, believe me, we've enjoyed this. I know everybody that's tuning tonight has enjoyed hearing from you, watching you, knowing you. They know that they have a friend now as a coach in college football, former player of the NFL. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time to be with us. But I also want to ask you to please send a message to everybody that's watching the show throughout Latin America, and they are going through a tough time. You know, this ain't easy. You're staying at home. Some of them have lost their jobs. Some of them have lost a loved one to COVID. So please, they will appreciate a word from you.
Well, I have a young guy coach. He was an assistant with me last year. He's my recruiting assistant. He called me every day, and he's at another school, and he's fearful that he's gonna be furloughed or laid off. And I said, look, you're gonna get through this. I always say God's got you. You know, if you've been through a valley before, if you've gone through the rough side of the mountain, you're gonna come out stronger. All right. Nobody knows all the details of how this is gonna play out, but it's sort of like, you know, if you start a movie and you know how the movie ends, I don't know everything to happen. I can't tell you everything's gonna happen, but I know it's gonna work out for you and your family. You must keep the faith.
That's a great word. Just let me translate that. Gary hace referencia a un compañero de trabajo que estaba preocupado, su asistente, de perder su trabajo y él le dice, hey, Dios nos va a apoyar, vamos a cruzar el lado difícil, el terreno duro de la montaña y vamos a lograr superar esto. El mensaje de Gary Downs para todos ustedes es definitivamente piensen en eso, vendrán mejores momentos y que lograremos prevalecer a pesar de las dificultades. Randy, one final word, please, brother.
Down, it's been great, man. You know, I love you like a brother, and just send my love to the family. And again, we'll be praying for you, your family, and the team. Wish you the best. Keep us informed, and you know, we talk every day, so we'll continue to talk. But thanks for being on the show, man, and we're just super proud of you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. Outstanding. Great luck with the show. South America, Central America, love it. Outstanding. Football is king.
Las palabras de Gary Downs. Un saludo para todos en América Latina y el fútbol americano sigue siendo rey. En nombre de Gonzalo Torres en la producción, nuestro patrocinador, la leyenda mezcal, Randy Fuller, la estrella de este show. Coach Gary Downs. Thank you, Gary. Soy Ricardo García. Que tengan todos una extraordinaria noche.
Football is king, but Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
All right.